Hi guys, wanted to run through the third lesson for the online Math 10. We're going to be using some extra resources from the Algebra 2. You'll find those if you go to the classroom page for 10.3, same for 10.4. This one here, online material for lesson 3. If you open that up, there is the questions plus the answers. Now I'm going to do some of the questions out of this, and you'll see the instructions for that. But basically, we'll run through questions 1, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9. And it's more practice about identifying the 4 parameters, amplitude, frequency, and the period, horizontal shift, principal axis, and then being able to draw. So we need a bit of practice. Now, these are the questions. Now, the first question says, identify the amplitude and the period. Now, you need to have a quick look and double check to see that the amplitude is from the principal axis up to the maximum. Now, that's the scale. I can see 1, 2, so the maximum goes up to 3. And the principal axis down to the minimum goes to -3. Now, because the principal axis is the y-axis, then the amplitude is that value. The period, well, we're starting, this is a sine curve, a standard sine curve, starting at the principal axis there and finishing here. Well, the period is 12. Now, later on, we're going to need to convert that into either degrees or radians, but we'll worry about that. In the next group of questions, we're going to do 3, 5, and 6. Identify the amplitude, the period, and so on. Look, I want to find all these things. I want amplitude, frequency, period. I need to see from this function all the things. Now, I need to remember the basic idea, y equals a sine, can't write, a sine b bracket x minus c plus d. And you need to remember that the amplitude is the coefficient in front, 4. The frequency is the coefficient of the x. The frequency is 1. And that means that the period is a standard 2 pi. Horizontal shift. Well, because this is just x, there is no subtraction in a bracket here. There is no horizontal shift. That's nice. Starts at 0. And the principal axis, well, there is no vertical shift. So the principal axis is y equals 0. Now, I want to take all of that information and put it into a nice graph. Now, as nice as I can do. It's a sine curve and a positive sine curve. So I want to draw a smooth curve that's a sine curve with the 5 significant points. Principal axis, the maximum, principal axis, minimum, principal axis. Now, I need to remember that the principal axis is y equals 0. And so 0 on my y-axis. Amplitude is 4, so we go down to -4. And we go up to +4. And the period is 2 pi, and we're starting from 0. So we're going to go from 0 to 2 pi on the x-axis, which means pi will be my middle point here for half of a period, pi on 2, and 3 pi on 2. Should be easy. All right, for question 5. Same idea. For this one, we're looking and we see that the amplitude is 5. We see the frequency is 4, which means there are four cycles in 2 pi radians. So the frequency is more, which means the period is less. And so the period will be 2 pi on 4. Pi on 2. Horizontal shift, well, there is no horizontal shift, starting at 0. Principal axis, well, the principal axis, there is no vertical shift, so the principal axis is y equals 0. Now this again is a sine curve, and a positive sine curve. So we starting at the principal axis up to the maximum. And so it looks a bit like that. We want to put our values on. So the principal axis is y equals 0. So put 0 for my y-axis. Amplitude is 5, so we're going down to -5, up to +5. No horizontal shift, so we're starting at 0. But we're finishing at pi on 2. That's the end of one period. Now, this value in the middle is halfway between those two. You can find the average, but the average of 0 and pi on 2 is half of that distance, so it's pi on 4. And between 0 and pi on 4 is, in the middle here, is half of that distance. So half of pi on 4 is pi on 8. Now this is 0, 1 pi on 8, 2 pi on 8. This will be 3 pi on 8. And 4 pi on 8 or pi on 2. For question 6, it's a cosine curve. There are two transformations. The 1/4 in front is going to be the amplitude. The frequency, well, the frequency is 2, which means the period will be 2 pi divided by 2, or pi. No horizontal shift again, and the principal axis is y equals 0. It's a cosine curve. We're going to start at a maximum. See how we go with this. Start at the maximum, through the principal axis, down to the minimum, principal axis up to the maximum. Principal axis was y equals 0, and so we're starting around 0. Amplitude is 1/4, so we go down to -1/4 and up to +1/4. Now there is no horizontal shift, and we're starting at 0, so 0 on the x-axis, and we're finishing at pi. That means the value in the middle here will be pi on 2. In the middle here will be pi on 4. And this will be 3 pi on 4. See if you make sense of that. Now, questions 8 to 11, graph the function. It's a cosine curve. In front of the function, there's a value of 1, and so the amplitude is 1. The frequency, well, there's just 1x, so the frequency is 1, which means the period is a standard 2 pi. Horizontal shift, well, there is no bracket here with the x, and so the horizontal shift is 0. And the +3 is my vertical shift. That's going to change my principal axis to be y equals 3. It's a cosine curve. So we're going to start at the principal axis, start at the maximum, down to the principal axis, through the minimum. So it looks a bit like that. Now the principal axis was 3, so y equals 3. Amplitude's 1, so we go down to 2 and up to 4. There is no horizontal shift, so we're going to start at 0 and we're going to finish at 2 pi. That means that the significant points in the middle here, the minimum should be at pi. When it hits the principal axis, it should be pi on 2. When it hits the principal axis again, it should be 3 pi on 2. Now, if you set your calculator to that viewing window and type this function in radians, you should get exactly what you see. All right, last one. This is a sine curve. Things we can see, that 2 is the amplitude. The frequency, well, there's only frequency of 1, which means the period will be 2 pi. Horizontal shift, there is no horizontal shift, and the principal axis is y equals -1. Now, because it's a sine curve, it starts at the principal axis, goes up to the maximum. Try that again. Maximum, principal axis. Oh, principal axis, back to there. The things we know that the principal axis is y equals -1. We know that the amplitude's 2, so from -1 we go down 2 to -3. We go up 2 from -1 to be +1. There's no horizontal shift, period 2 pi, and so our significant values on the x-axis, pi, pi on 2, 3 pi on 2. Now, you're going to have a task to do where you're going to draw one with the horizontal shift. That will be the interesting one, and that will be submitted in the post-lesson check-in. Thank you very much.